As always, with this type of video, I beg your indulgence because I am groping my way along, trying to find my way to the answer, and it's an answer I don't have pre-digested. So, I encourage you to watch this on 1.5 speed. I know I'm a slow talker. I appreciate anybody who does watch it, especially watches it through to the very end, which hopefully will be very much worth your while. Well, my thoughts on this subject started to percolate in my mind today when I happened to run across this post on the gram, um, and it's a post similar to a bunch of other posts that I've seen concerning the way things are right now, concerning the present, not just the present year, but the way things have been for the last few years. You can say it started in 2020. I would say it started much earlier than that. I think it started in. I would say I would go back. I would back it up to 2015. 2015 was when things started to go awry, when things started to get weird, when things started to get uh, started to go off the rails in a significant way, and when we lost the sense of proportion and sanity, I would even say. The line from the Smiths' Panic, "Could life ever be sane again?" That line keeps coming back to me over and over and over again, because that's the line that it seems people ask themselves these days. Could life ever be sane again? um, and so this one post, and this is just a variation of a theme that I've seen, many, many other times, about how awful things are right now. And this is, like, this isn't older people like myself. This isn't old fogies, who are like, it's not like it was in the old days. It's not coming from that kind of point of view. This is from the point of view of young people who are growing up in today's world. They know something's wrong. They know multiple things are wrong. They know that things are off. And it was so it's this guy who put in an Instagram post, what if Back to the Future happened today? And the premise was, what if today, in 2024, Marty McFly went back in time 30 years to 1994? And he said, well, in that case, Marty would just want to stay. He wouldn't want to come back to the present. He would just want to stay in the past. And it was shocking to me. Well, no, it wasn't really shocking, because I expected it, but it continues to be very interesting to me, how just about every comment on this post was backing him up, backing up the OP, saying, yeah, right on. I'd do the same thing. Things were so much better in the 90s and the 80s, and I would go back there in a heartbeat, and I would stay there forever. And all this, and these weren't from people. I mean, some of them I think were probably older people who remembered the 80s and 90s, but I think that a lot of them were not. A lot of them were people who were saying, who longed for the way things used to be. And the nostalgia. Of course, nostalgia is all we always. We're always afflicted with nostalgia, and I've commented on nostalgia. I've written about nostalgia before, so this isn't my first time, and I've actually written about Back to the Future as it relates to nostalgia before. I think that article is somewhere in my Substack page. But the original Back to the Future movies well, I'll just say the first movie, this second and the third movies, I don't know, they were kind of off in their own place. But the first movie, which is I think can be taken as as a full story in and of itself. We don't have to consider the second two. We don't have to consider it as a trilogy because it's a fully enclosed story in and of itself. In that movie, Marty goes, the year is 1985. Marty goes back in time uh, in the DeLorean to 1955, 30 years back in time. And of course, that was a nostalgia trip. And of course, a lot of people who watched it oohed and awed at the idea of, what it was like in the 50s and how things were more innocent and this, that, and the other thing. And of course, there was some of that then. But the poster of this Instagram was right. He was right when he said Marty would have wanted to stay. He would have just blown up the DeLorean or thrown away the key to the DeLorean and just stayed. He'd have rather stayed in 1994, 30 years ago, than the Marty who went back to 1955 from 1985. That Marty wanted to come back to his home, to the people that he knew, and he knew he didn't belong in the past. But as interesting as the past was, as charming as the past was, that wasn't the place where he wanted to stay. But it would be much harder for one to resist the urge to just simply stay in the past, was the point made by the original poster on this Instagram page. And he's right. And and his correctness, how right he was, is confirmed in the way that people responded to him. So I want to think about that, but I also want to think about how, I've talked about how today, I recently wrote about in a piece that's a continuing piece that I'm working on about a mall shooting in 1990, a very overlooked shooting in a mall in Atlanta in 1990 that has all these strange elements to it. But in my last article on that subject, I reflected on how when you read something in the news in 1990 or saw something on the TV news in 1990, you pretty much believed what you were told. You didn't think there was this whole secret world where people were engaging in awful and inhuman activities. That generally wasn't something. We that's not to say that people weren't cynical about politicians and cynical about business leaders, and of course, it wasn't like everybody's wonderful, everybody's fine, everybody's exactly who they seem to be. We weren't naive in that sense, but in another sense, we were very naive because the kind of things that have been unleashed upon us over the last few years were things that nobody really believed back then. I mean, the kind of people who did believe those sorts of things were oddities. The kind of people who thought that the political and cultural elites were systematically raping children. People who thought that back then were on the fringes. I'm not saying nobody like that existed, but I'm just saying it was not generally something that you had to worry about. It was like even though it was happening, it was not a burden that you had to carry around with you the way that it is today for so many people who the last few years have been a revelation. So much of what has been hidden has come to light. And that's part of what makes the present so unbearable is the fact that we know too much to know. I mean, it's like life can never be sane again. Like it says, like Morrissey says in the song. We truly know that now. So that's why I was thinking about this when I was rewatching the Netflix special on Jimmy Savile, which is actually a really good documentary. There's some quality. I know the truth about Netflix. I don't have any illusions about what Netflix is, but somehow, for some reason, some way, some quality work is being shown at Netflix, and the documentary about the Sons of Sam was really good, and this documentary about Jimmy Savile was also really good. Now, watching that documentary, seeing all these old videos of Jimmy Savile, appearing on British media in various ways and doing various things. Whether it's his show Jim'll Fix It, where he makes some kids' dreams come true by letting them do things that they only dream about doing, or his seemingly untiring charity work for mental hospitals, for which he's given the upshot of that is that he's given access to all the patients at these hospitals. He's given all the keys. He's given an apartment to stay in near the hospital or at the hospital, and all kinds of things, and at a girls' reformatory school, and just all the stuff that was going on with Jimmy Savile. And I wasn't privy to any of that. I didn't know who Jimmy Savile was. Being from the United States, he was not at all. He didn't cross the pond at all as a cultural phenomenon. But in Great Britain, Jimmy Savile was huge. Jimmy Savile. It's hard to think of who he could be compared to. I mean, I would think that there might be some parallel between his fall, between the fall of Jimmy Savile, the fall of his reputation. Unfortunately, he himself never fell because he died before anything was ever released about all of the massive, horrific crimes that he seemingly committed against children. But I think a parallel could be drawn to somebody like Bill Cosby over here, even though Bill Cosby was not nearly the kind of cultural figure that it seems Jimmy Savile was. Bill Cosby didn't, talk regularly to, the president and advise, highly placed, powerful people, whoever the equivalent would be of the royal family in England, on various kinds of things. And he was like America's dad for a little while, and his show was number one for a long time, and he was held in high regard. Even though he was black, he sort of transcended race. But later, of course, we found out the sort of things that he got up to, and he had his fall from grace while he was still alive, whereas Savile's fall from grace didn't happen until after his death. But I would just say, back in the 80s, let's stay with the 80s for a second. People were mostly blissfully ignorant about the things that were really going on. Not just with Jimmy Savile, not just with Bill Cosby. Those are two people who it came out about. But what we found was people, they you don't just abuse and nobody and get away with it. You have to compromise others in order to get that and be able to leverage that in the form of blackmail, in order to get people to shut up about you. It's pretty clear that Savile must have procured children and given them to other highly placed people, and that's how he. And that's the that's the if we talk about pedogate just in general, the crimes are both the exploitation, the actual abuse of children, but it's also the crime of the procurement of children and the pandering of children to others. And that's what it seemed, the what was really going on at Penn State, to move to a different locale, with the Penn State coach, whose name I'm not recalling right now, but what really came out, or what really was never allowed to come out, was the degree to which not only did he abuse these young men, these at-risk young men that he was pretending to mentor, or in his mind he was mentoring them, but he was also abusing them sexually, but also the fact that he would pander them out to others. And that's how you get a network of secrecy. It's blackmail. Blackmail is how it works. Now, I'm just talking about all of this because when these two things have to be held in tension with one another, okay? Like this longing for the past, which I understand. I understand what that Instagram poster was saying about about Marty McFly, if Back to the Future was today and he went back 30 years, he'd just want to stay there and wouldn't want to come back to this, this mess of a world we've got today, this awful world we've got today. Well, what makes the world today so awful is the fact that we can't run from this, the things that were kept from us anymore. We can't keep them at a distance from ourselves anymore, because those things have been, to a great extent, those things have been exposed to us. Those things that were hidden from us for a long time, and that we were kept ignorant of for a long time. Now, they're right in front of our face. How can we deny them? They killed Epstein and said that he committed suicide, yet nobody believes that, right? Exactly. That's exactly the point. Epstein didn't kill himself. Who believes that? And if it's truly widespread that people don't believe that, then what does that suggest? That suggests a whole bunch of other things. Who killed him? Why did they kill him? Obviously to shut him up. And what did they? What did these people who killed him have to hide, or what were they trying to keep from escaping into the into the world by him being alive and possibly talking? So you go back in time and you watch you go back in time to the 80s and you think, well, okay, things are so much better now. That we're not falling apart as a nation. We're not at each other's throats. Not everything isn't political. Um, you know, you don't have to worry about your pronouns or that kind of crap, or calling people by the wrong pronoun or that kind of crap. But at the same time, what made those previous eras uh, seem better, or seem more innocent, seem uh, more desirable to live in, was the fact that that was a time of greater secrecy. That was a time of greater naivety. Whereas today, it's all getting exposed. It's all coming out. And so that's the real kicker. I mean, I don't I it believe me, it has an effect on having to live right now. Wears on me too. I long for the before time. But on the other hand, this is the time when things are getting revealed. This is a very unique time. This is a time, uh, I don't know. I'm not saying things are going to get better immediately or even in the near future. They might get worse. They might get quite a bit worse. But one thing we should treasure about the present is the fact that this is a time in which things are coming out. And that's why the powers that be are so zealous to censor, to claim disinformation, to try to shut you up and kick you off of social media, kick you off of the internet. Uh, you know, they weren't worried about things like that in the before time. You could say whatever, and I mean, if you believed that these kinds of weird and sinister things happened behind the scenes, and you talked about it, people just thought you were a nut and you were harmless. But today you're not harmless if you talk about those things, because we've reached critical mass. We've reached a point at which a great number of the population knows. What is it? Some of you say the goyim know. I'm not going to make this into a racial thing. But that's basically it. The hoi polloi, the people who are supposed to be kept asleep, the people who are supposed to be seen as the sheep uh, to be kept in ignorance, and just herded along. They know now. They know, and that's the power there. That's that. If you want to hold on to something about the present that's good, I think that's a good thing. So when you're feeling nostalgic, just keep that in mind. You're feeling nostalgic for a time when there was greater ignorance, because ignorance is bliss. And now you're at a time where you're not. Uh, they haven't been able to keep you ignorant anymore. They've not been able to put a lid on your what you can know, what you can find out. And now that's why they're zealous to call you a disinfo agent who's sent by Putin, or something like that. If you talk about the sort of things that are now coming to light. So, just a few thoughts. Thanks for watching. If you watched this to the end, God bless you. Talk to y'all soon.